It was supposed to be just another regular Thursday night. I had no idea that what would happen in the next few hours would turn my whole world upside down. If you had told me that my wife's best friend would be the reason everything in our home would change, I would have laughed. But here I am, still trying to wrap my head around how one visit, one unexpected moment changed everything. I was in the kitchen stirring the pot of pasta on the stove when I heard the front door creak open. My wife Sarah had texted me earlier saying she was running late from work, but her best friend Rachel might stop by to hang out until she got home. It wasn't unusual. Rachel was like a part of the family. She had been Sarah's closest friend since they were kids, practically grew up together, and was the maid of honor at our wedding. She had keys to our place, came by all the time, and was always respectful. At least that's what I thought. "Hey, John," Rachel called from the living room. Her voice carried its usual upbeat tone, but there was something different in the way she said my name. I peeked around the corner and gave her a smile. "Hey, Rachel. Sarah isn't back yet." She walked in, dropping her jacket on the coat rack. "Yeah, she told me. Said I could hang out here for a bit. Hope that's okay." "Of course," I said, wiping my hands on a towel. "Want something to drink?" "Sure. You got that ginger ale I like?" "You know it," I said, grabbing a can from the fridge and handing it over. She sat down at the kitchen island while I finished up dinner. For the first few minutes, it was normal. We talked about sports, the usual gossip about people we all knew. But then the conversation took a strange turn. She got quieter, more thoughtful. It wasn't like Rachel to be this still. She was usually cracking jokes or teasing me like an older brother would. "You know," she said slowly, tapping her fingers against the can, "I always thought Sarah hit the jackpot with you." I raised an eyebrow, slightly amused but caught off guard. "Thanks." "I think I'm serious," she said, meeting my eyes. "You're amazing. Smart, beautiful, patient, supportive." I don't think she realizes how lucky she is sometimes. I let out an awkward chuckle and turned back to the stove. "That's sweet. But Sarah is a great wife. She's just busy lately." "Yeah, busy," Rachel echoed, but there was something in her tone I couldn't ignore. I plated the pasta and told her dinner was ready. We sat down at the table, still just the two of us. I kept checking my phone, hoping Sarah would text again, but there was nothing. Rachel, meanwhile, was still acting off. Quieter than usual, thoughtful in a way that made me feel like she was working up to something. "You ever think about how life could have turned out differently?" she asked suddenly. "Like, what do you mean?" I replied. "I mean, if Sarah hadn't met you first." My heart skipped a beat. "Rachel, I know," she said quickly, holding up her hands. "I'm not trying to be weird, I've always admired you. And tonight, sitting here, just the two of us, I guess I'm realizing how much I've kept to myself." I stared at her, stunned. This was the woman who had stood next to Sarah at our wedding, the woman who had given a heartfelt toast about how happy she was for us, how perfect we were together. I never imagined she'd be sitting at our kitchen table saying something like this. "I care about you, John," she said softly. "I always have." I stood up, my plate barely touched. "Rachel, I think you should leave." She didn't argue. She nodded slowly, like she'd expected it, like she knew she'd crossed a line. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I just had to say it, but I'll go." And just like that, she left. No anger, no drama, just silence. I locked the door behind her and leaned against it, my heart pounding. I didn't know what to do or whether to tell Sarah. I didn't want to start something between them, especially when I wasn't sure what Rachel's intentions really were. Maybe she just got caught up in the moment. Maybe she didn't mean anything by it. When Sarah finally got home an hour later, she was exhausted. She kissed me on the forehead and thanked me for leaving dinner out for her. I didn't say anything about Rachel. Not that night. But the next day, everything started to change. Rachel stopped coming around. No game nights, no random visits, no texts or calls. Sarah noticed but didn't seem too concerned. She figured Rachel was busy with work or needed some space. I wanted to leave it that way, to pretend nothing happened, but guilt was gnawing at me. 3 weeks later, I finally told Sarah everything. We were sitting on the couch and I couldn't take it anymore. I told her what Rachel had said, how uncomfortable it made me, and how I felt it was better if I said something now rather than let it grow into a bigger issue later. Sarah didn't say anything for a long time. She just sat there staring at the TV with a blank expression. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. I always thought she had a thing for you. I just didn't want to believe it. My breath caught. You. You did? She was always a little too eager to be around you, Sarah said. I thought maybe I was overthinking it, but I guess not. I felt terrible, like I'd betrayed Sarah, even though I'd done nothing wrong. But she didn't blame me. In fact, she hugged me and thanked me for being honest. Still, things weren't the same after that. Sarah reached out to Rachel once, but Rachel didn't respond. She tried again a week later. Nothing. It hurt Sarah more than she let on. They'd been best friends for nearly 2 decades. But that friendship, like so many things in life, came to an unexpected end in the most quiet and strange way. Months went by. Life moved on, but the tension never fully left our home. Not between me and Sarah. We were solid. If anything, the experience brought us closer. We talked more, made time for each other, and made sure nothing was left unsaid. It was almost like that night forced us to remember how important our foundation was. But Rachel's absence was a silent reminder of how quickly things could change. Then, one Saturday afternoon, there was a knock at our door. I opened it to find Rachel standing there, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "I'm not here to cause problems," she said before I could say a word. "I just need to talk to Sarah, please." Sarah stepped into the hallway, tense but calm. She didn't invite her in. They spoke outside for nearly 20 minutes. I stayed inside, pacing, listening to muffled words I couldn't make out. When Sarah came back in, she looked lighter. Sad, but lighter. She apologized. She said simply, told me she's been dealing with a lot, that she was confused, that she needed time to sort herself out. And I asked. I told her we're fine, but things won't go back to the way they were. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was closure. We never saw Rachel again after that. Maybe someday we will, maybe we won't. But one thing's for sure. What happened in our home that night changed everything. It ended a friendship. It tested a marriage. And it reminded us that sometimes even the people you trust the most can surprise you in ways you never expected. But through it all, Sarah and I came out stronger. And for that, I'm grateful.